fifth and final conversation with Luke. And we have basically been circling around the same topic of belonging throughout the conversation, but coming at it from different angles: personal versus professional, being versus doing. And for me, the cost of making money, kind of from one or the other of those aspects. But I really enjoy hanging with Luke. I love his gentle demeanor and his very curious personality. And I have, it's like it's fun. It's enjoyable. But it can also be challenging, and there's plenty of insights that pop or affirming insights. So I think that you're gonna enjoy this conversation too. At least I hope you will. And I do think there's a little bit of an edge in it for most people. I hope.
This way, it doesn't, it's not like this. You can see
'Cause
me.
that's
So,
kind of boring.
and that is the point. So, yes, thank you for your patience with my delay. Well, without going super into the nitty gritty of it, basically, a medication that I received for like the cancer treatment has inadvertently sort of triggered Crohn's things, and so
Ouch.
yeah, so I am running a little low on sleep because I keep getting awoken to take more Tylenol, and then wait a little bit and take more melatonin and go back to sleep. So, well, we'll make it. It'll be all right.
We'll
It'll
make
be a
it.
little
That's
more
good.
uninhibited, I guess.
Well,
A certain level of sleep deprivation is similar to being kind of drunk, I feel like sometimes. So,
which, kind of me and Kate in our last conversation, if you listen to that one, we went uninhibited for sure. Um, Specifically when it comes to drugs and alcohol and
oh,
stuff like that. So yeah,
I will have to listen. I from what I've heard, I would not expect that she'd be into
it
that.
was a really fun episode, and I think we were both surprised at where we ended up about about drugs, about getting that buzz, however you get it, and when you need it and when you don't need it. And there comes sensuality and sexuality and nudity and, just dancing in public or not dancing in public, everything just there. Um, so
I
a
was gonna
surprising
say
episode, but really, really, really lovely. Really a lovely conversation.
awesome because
Mhm.
yeah, I was gonna say drugs are one way to get a buzz. There are many ways to be high on life. So,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Yeah, and it was interesting because in many ways we're very alike, me and Kate, when it comes to our kind of we're alike in many ways, and then came at this aspect from that point of being alike, and yet on not opposite sides, but kind of needing or when would that bus be of service and when wouldn't it? Just completely different. It's like I have no issue standing up and dancing or going outside and dancing and singing on the streets. Like not an issue at all right now. And Kate is like, no, I need to have that butt in order to be able to do that. Um, Whereas, improv theater, oh my God, me and Özlem, we still haven't found a place to do it, but we will. It's like, "Oh, shit," and she's like, "I do that any day without an issue." So just, like, really
Cool.
flipped. Yeah, and it's like it's fun to that's part of the beauty of these meandering conversations for me, that kind of you stumble upon these just gold mines of fun and laughter and recognition and amazement and wonderment and insights and wow, could you think like that too? I didn't know that. It's like so just rich, very, very rich.
Oh yeah, and how can you be um really similar to somebody in certain respects and then be on totally different pages in other respects? But yeah, and
Yeah.
well, I was gonna wait until the end to do my thing, and I probably will still do something at the end. But yeah, I've really appreciated being a part of this podcast series, and um, I mean, I'm definitely bringing ideas to the table as well. But I am really glad that uh, this series that we found each other at the time that we did, because some of the themes that you've talked about have been kind of been running through the season, um, have kind of also been themes for me as well. Um, and I just kind of wonder, it's like I feel like in the past few months I've made so much more progress on those things than I had previously, and I don't know if it is finding uh other people who are also talking about this and going through the same things, and especially who are doing the work and putting things in practice and are embodying um these things. But yeah, just um self-care,
Mm.
boundaries, how you treat your inner child, where does self-talk come from, and how can you be kinder to yourself in that regard. I mean, just the whole gentle with an edge concept of how can you be kind to yourself, but you know, ensure that you walk a line between, like, actually, being gentle, but also doing what is necessary to, like, move you ahead as a human, which is also a kindness. It's just it's a different form of kindness, because that alone can be a trap you can get into. Is like, well, like, is constant coddling actually being kind to yourself? Is not pushing yourself outside of your comfort actually being kind? So I think, like, that had been an area that I had been sort of getting hung up in. And I think that well, and not necessarily coddling, well, but having periods of, like, kind of like being overly easy, and then periods of being overly difficult, and
Yeah.
sort of to compensate. And so it's easier to sort of combine the concepts, and
Yeah, and
go.
I think it's probably I mean, there is this pendulum aspect to it, I think, or cyclical aspect. You can look at it that way too. So I don't think that's wrong, but again, few things in excess are actually in service of you. I actually don't really know if there's maybe unconditional love, right? But, going all woozy, but kind of it's like there's no food, too much of any type of food or drink is not good for you. Too much sleep, not good for you. Too much exercise, not good for you. Too much sex, not good for you. Too much booze or drugs, not good for you.
Very
Too
not
much
good for you.
books, really not good for you. If you only live too much gaming, not, it's like too much living in the cold, not good for you. A little bit of cold, lovely for you, right? So I don't know that too much cuddling or too harsh would ever be a good thing, but we can kind of skirt up to it and then hopefully find the way back so that we are in the movement of it. Because, yes, for sure, there are periods in a month when I need to be gentler towards myself than other times when, come on, Helena, you can do it. And I'm like raring to go. Um,
Like, you might get a little bit of cancer,
like you might get a little bit of cancer, right? So
hypothetically
what do you
speaking.
need to push, sort of tone down in order to
Yeah.
make sure that you tone up some other things? Because it's not a normal situation. It's not what you do. This has happened now, and it is a new,
I'm a
it's like,
professional cancer haver.
well, probably maybe a few of those around, but I sure hope there's very few of them. Um, because it is an exceptional situation. In the same way, I mean, becoming pregnant is also one of those things. Yes, it happens, and quite naturally it should happen to you. It's still a different thing. My body starts to act differently when I'm pregnant than when I'm not because I'm pregnant. You need to change then. I need a little bit more of this and a little bit less of that. So coming into the
More pickles and
habit
ice
of
cream.
there's that. Coming
Uh,
into the habit of kind of being observant of that, being aware, like turning on the meta me that is observing me, um, is a good thing. And I'm I'm suspecting that it's a little bit of a combination of you being ready for it, the cancer. Like it seems to me, the cancer experience is opening you to new things.
yeah.
So rather than closing you, which could also be a very natural response to it, but it feels like, from my point of view, as if it's been opening you up, which actually Mark Nepo, in his lovely Book of Awakening, he writes that quite a few times in the daily entries about how him getting cancer, rib cancer, I think, uh, was an opening experience for him too. Um, Along with the company you're keeping, because, the people you surround yourself with matter greatly. Um, but also, I'm guessing what's in the air. What's going on?
What?
What's
Well,
what's the
from our
state of
last
the world?
conversation,
What's there?
what signals are available to tune into or pick up on?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And yeah, thank you for sharing that, your observation that it has been sort of an opening experience because, uh, slowly, but yeah, and yes, it has been, um, but it has been, yeah, and there's definitely been an impetus for change, um, and it has, yeah. If I had to dig into like why that I think has been the case, I mean, with my other chronic illness, well,
with your
Hopefully the
chronic
cancer's not
name.
a chronic illness. My chronic
Exactly,
illness.
exactly. Be very careful with your
Be
words here,
very
my friend.
careful. Yes, yes. And what I don't want to speak and create the wrong thing, but in discovery of or in having that experience in like in middle school, it was a very closing experience. It was
Mm.
not an opening
Mm.
experience. And so I do wonder if there have been a lot of like echoes
Mm.
of that experience in terms of interpersonal state, in terms of uh, well, I guess what I was going to say next was like family situation, which is still interpersonal state. Um, uh, but yeah, just there were a lot of things that were like similarities between that time period, and I think that there has been learning in regards to like, okay, we shouldn't act the way that we did last time because that was very detrimental to us, and so we need to figure out a different way of being in the face of this kind of like tragedy and hardship because the other way is not going to cut it. We've kind
Yeah.
of gone and done that
Been
route,
there,
and
done
that
that.
was
Didn't work out too great. Yeah.
not very good for us. And maybe I think this is actually highly related. So if you don't mind, I will go ahead and launch into
Go
this.
ahead. This is what we do here.
So what we do, well, I do like to try to be mindful of how much I'm talking compared with my interlocutor. So,
No, 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 no.
okay.
No. Talk.
Um, this past week, I had sort of a bit of a revelation in my therapy session with regards to a lot of the things that I mentioned when I was saying things that I think, well, at least in our conversations on this season of the podcast, have been big themes like self-talk, inner self-talk, inner child, letting inner child emotions be valid and not invalidating them. So I have been working on some passion projects kind of before the cancer, but I've tried to throw myself even further into it afterwards as sort of a treat thing, but it hasn't necessarily feelings wise manifested that way. Where it started out as like, oh, this is a really fun thing. And then because we have goals attached to it, okay, this is sort of turned into work. And so
Yes.
going, oh, well, why did that happen? Um, and I mean, I could go through all of the things that it's connected to in the therapy session, but how it really boiled down to was, okay, like, so you have these different ego states. You have like parent, adult, and child. Um, like, how are you parenting your inner child?
Yes.
How are you as the parent self interacting with your child ego state? And l- hypothetically speaking, maybe one is copying the parenting behaviors that were unhealthy that they saw from their parents
Yeah.
and currently
Which
see
which
from their
seems
parents.
very, logical and rational. It's like that is the soil I grew up in. Of course, that is what I will do.
Yeah. I read a book called Come As You Are that I really liked the garden analogy.
Emily
Nagoski.
Nagoski, whatever. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't read it, but it's on my to-read list.
It's very good. She has a metaphor called the garden that's like, so you grow up to be an adult and you inherit this like plot of land, but you didn't necessarily get to choose what's growing in the garden when you were a child. Whatever was planted there by your parents, or, whatever seeds fell there, whatever, however you want to further the analogy, but you didn't put that stuff there. But now that you're an adult, you can look at it and you can decide, well, is that a plant that I want to keep, or should we uproot this? Does this belong in the garden?
Mm.
Um, but anyway, to kind of tie it back, it was like, oh, I've been propagating all of these weeds that in my inner child self. And gee, is it any wonder that, in my family of origin, it's a low trust environment where,
Mm.
the parents are not honest about the fact that they are in fact parents and have responsibility. So parent self is kind of taking a parental role when it's like, useful, but not really when it's not. And so then, can leave the child self stranded.
Mm.
Um, or will like act ironic or whatever, like, the parent self doesn't actually have the power or have, any kind of authority. Um, where it's like, no, you do, and there are decisions that should be made. So make the decision instead of,
Skirting the
like making fun
responsibility.
of the fact that
Mm.
you're making a decision
Mm.
or, making light of it. Um, but also, but yeah, and then just like taking the child's self's needs seriously, not laughing at them or thinking that they're silly and going, and sure, obviously balancing this, that's gentle with an edge, balancing this with like, okay, well, we have a need for downtime, yes, but, we already spent our budget today for those kinds of things. So let's make up some kind of a compromise, like 15 minutes of this, and then, we'll ease into the next activity. So we can do a light version and before we, start the next thing for real. I'm coming up with something hypothetical, but um, yeah, but just so this week it was funny that it just clicked that it was like, oh, maybe this is why I've been having difficulty getting things done, is because like my inner selves are not on the same page. They don't respect each other. They don't trust each other, and they're not aligned with each other. And so, is it any wonder that you have these things of like, oh, inner child's just decided it's like screw around time for like 2 or 3 hours, you know, and we're neglecting something that has to be done. Um, or adult self then gets all upset, and now we have to, you know, work ourselves silly for 4 hours straight, where it's like as punishment, and then the child is gonna rebel again, so because, oh, I don't want to do that. Why do we spend our time doing that without taking breaks like a rational person? Mm. So while it's been a challenging week in terms of physical ailments, it's been a very nice week mentally. Because I've kind of gotten aligned, and I made some happy sounding audio art. So
Cool.
yeah. So
I had
long story to say, thank you for, I think, episode 3, talking
mm,
about like, it's okay to let your inner child have its reactions and responses to things, and
yeah.
maybe you don't blurt out, you know, well, I think you're an effing idiot, you know, you keep it back, but you're allowed to have a reaction. You're allowed to be
Yeah.
upset. You're
Yeah.
allowed to not just rationalize things away
But it's
and take
it's it's interesting.
seriously.
I had therapy session with Dominic Monday, the way that I usually do. And I I was I had a new assignment that I got done, which included a couple of nights at a hotel. And it was really interesting to listen during therapy to the different inner selves at play here. Because during those nights at the hotel, I was like a lethargic blob when I was in the hotel room. I didn't go for walks, and it's a lovely little town. I didn't go to the hotel sauna, which I would, why didn't I? I love to sauna. It's like I just didn't do anything. I was just, well, kind of doing nothing, feeling really, really like a blob. Just no energy, no drive whatsoever. And part of me, another part of me, gets super disgusted at myself for that. Because, come on, you shouldn't, you know? Um, and I can relate it to the assignment that I had and what I got done and what I didn't get done. And I got done what I was there to do. But then I would like to have done more. I would like to have solved more problems or made a dent in other aspects too. So Dominic was saying or suggesting that, that inner you, that blob, that other part of you gets so disgusted at. It's kind of funny that you get disgusted at yourself. You know? What kind of conversation could those two have with each other? What might they have to say to each other? What might come out of that? And I haven't had time yet to sit down and because I could probably do that as a dominant, non-dominant handwriting.
Oh, that's such a cool idea.
It is such a cool idea, and it is such an uh, valuable way to let other things come. I'm right-handed, so when my left hand is writing, I just don't know what's going to come. It's like super interesting to perceive or to experience that. But and then there was the metame above those two, above the blob and the disgusted one going, hey, you, what are you, or hey, yous, the two yous, what are you doing? What's going on here? Why? What are you doing? And how does this relate to the assignment you have? How does this relate to your understanding of the assignment, to your beliefs about yourself and what you are, how do I provide value, etc. So it's been an interesting week for me too, with a lot of uh like some insight and some not yet insight, but I think it will become. It's like I'm on the road of discovery, kind of. It's like I know there's something here, but I don't really know what it is yet. I haven't gotten to the insight. I just know that, oh, there's something.
Was this related to your post about being in the depths?
Well, the being in the depth, yes, it was. Because I actually wrote that in that hotel room. So that was the first, it's like, again, I started the depths is what my shame deep dive document is called that I started 2 years ago. So August 2020. Yeah, shit. And
Time.
time, yeah, and it's 156,000 words in this document, so it's fucking big.
Whew.
Yeah, and I've been For 1.5 year, almost, I wrote a lot, almost daily, and I also wrote after each of the Dominic sessions. And then a year ago, I stopped doing that. I did a couple, and then this year, like I've written like maybe 4 times in that document. And just having had a session last month, it was just I want to. I need to. At long last, the need to actually work the stuff more was just bubbling up for me. Um,
Kind of comes back to in the beginning, you were saying there is sort of a cyclical thing where sometimes,
yes.
like, there is a need, and then sometimes, okay, we need to ease off that for,
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like 9 months to a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It was a
and then
year
it's
ago
like,
that I stopped writing so much. Um, and
but the cycles come around again.
precisely. And somebody was asking me, why did you stop writing? And I stopped writing because Dominic challenged me. He asked, who are you writing for? And I was like, well, I want to be writing for me, but I had gotten into the habit because I share those writings with him because it helps him see what I take from the therapy, kind of goes on from there. And I also share part of it, at least, in my creative community. And from the beginning, it was like I wrote it thinking that one day this will be a book. And he said, who are you writing for? Because it felt like a chore. I was like, I don't know, Well, what if you only write for you? It's like, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that, Luke. I don't. I don't do well with that. I started to actually blog and write for real when I did the blog 100 challenge, blog daily for 100 days. And it's like, oh, finally, it was a structure that worked for me because then I did it. And now, when I sat down last week and actually wrote, it's like, hmm, it feels as if it is for me now.
That's great.
Yeah.
I imagine it feels really good.
Because it's a little bit like writing those therapy sessions is a little bit like writing dreams. You, there's you remember a few things, and then as you're writing, you kind of, oh, yeah, and that happened. Oh, and before that, an alien popped in or whatever it is, because dreams can be fucking weird, right?
Yeah.
But it's a little bit the same thing. I start somewhere to jot down what happened during therapy, and then all of a sudden I remember, oh, and this happened too, and oh, this happened too, and like, so it is a very, um, it's like one of those. It's like the fun house. You open a door and wow, there's more doors. It's like you open, oh wow, more doors.
Yeah.
It just
More reflections and
more
um,
reflections, more insights, more
prisms.
stuff to take notice of, to integrate. Um,
What was I gonna say? Oh, last time I talked about the tarot reading that I had, and it was really
yeah,
funny because it's like I went into the place, and about halfway through I noticed like it's almost like I'm not recording this to my like conscious self. Like I'm so in the present and this is just going by that immediately afterwards, if you had challenged me to like,
Yeah.
okay, walk through what happened like in a linear fashion,
Yeah.
I I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I could
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
feelings or like what the overall theme was. But it wasn't really until unpacking it in like the following weeks with other people, um, that yeah, more pieces would jump out, and it's like, oh yes, right, it happened, and it's yeah, it makes me think it's like subconscious is capturing it, and it's somewhere still in the subconscious, but you have to like go ask it
Yeah.
for it, and
Yeah, precisely. And I
maybe
think
it'll
that
say,
is
"Well,
what.
you're not ready for this yet."
No,
Wait,
precisely.
hold on.
Yeah. And it can come back later. But I think that's a good description of what happens when I sit down to write most of the stuff that I write. It is that conscious, non subconscious conversation that starts to happen where things pop from beneath. There's like, oh wow. And it's such a
I like
cool
that. That looked like a
discovery.
flower. What you did with your hand.
Yeah, yeah. And it just, it blooms, it blossoms, it just comes. Um, but one more thing that was really, really significant in Monday's therapy session. So, um, I have 3 wives. I think I've told you about this before, and they're all
I
coming.
don't know.
You don't know. Well, I have 3 wives. Um, m dear, dear friends from the back office of School Spring, the movement that we ran, um, 2013 to 16, I can say. And we're so close that we are as if we're married to each other. So my 3 wives are coming here this weekend because 2 of us turns 50 this year, or have turned 50 this year, so we're celebrating. And it's been a long time since we had 2 days together. A year ago, we had 1 day together. Um, but I mended There's garden jeans in the summer, and I gave them to her, and she just loved them, and it was just so fun. And then Susan asked, "Would I have a linen dress with a hole under the arm. Do you want to fix it?" It's like, "You don't have to." It's like, "Yes, please." So I got it in August when I went up to see her, and I was mending it, but one hole, it's too little, right? It's like, dude, that's just one little patch. I want to do more. So I kind of also fixed the other side. Well, I didn't go so far as to snip it open or rip it apart, but on the other side, maybe with a little bit of stretched imagination, you could say that maybe it was about to break. So I fixed that too. And there's like, there needs to be a little bit more. So I did some stitching across the chest and the neckline and a little bit along one of the arms. And I was telling Dominic about this on Monday. How I love the mark making that is. I love how it just happens, and I can be astonished at what I perceive as the beauty of it because it turns out so fucking good. It's just beautiful. Um, and it's not as if it is a creation. It happens in the moment. It is done. It is a mark that wants to be done. It's a stitch that wants to be stitched. And I was telling him about this, and he said, "Oh, wow," and felt into it and said, "I feel so moved." I got tears in my eyes, and he got tears in his eyes. And he was like, "The thing is, this is an aspect where I know that she loves me for my being. And I could do marks on this dress or not do marks on this dress. And it wouldn't matter. She'd love me anyway. So it is my being that is first and foremost. And then the doing is just a perk. It's just a bonus. And I then recounted that I fixed my mom's jeans in the spring and she loved them. And back there over the piano is a notice board that I made from an old window and wine corks. So you can put pins in it and stuff. And it's a really beautiful
Oh,
one. And I made that 30 years ago or something. Um, and I made one of those for my father as well. And he loved it and, had it in a prominent place in his house and whatnot. But Dominic put his finger on that too. Because it was like, there it's the doing that gets appreciated so that my being is kind of tolerated or accepted or okay. It's okay that you're being as well because look at the glorious stuff you can do. But it's the other way around with
or it
Susan.
should be.
And it is with Susan where it's my being. That's the point. And then the doing is just a bonus. So I don't have to fit in with my wives because I belong. I belong. My being is there. Whereas with my family, it's like, well, yeah, the odd one out, the black sheep, the whatnot. That would be me, the ugly duckling, where now and again I can do something that gets appreciated, which then kind of validates that, okay, we can, you're
You
okay.
can eat at the dinner table with us. Yeah.
Precisely, precisely. Um,
This is also very relatable. Thank you for sharing and phrasing it that way. It's power. That's definitely something that has come up this year for me is and definitely with the cancer thing. Like why? Well, first of all, like will people when you are in a crisis, are they going to show up for you? And if they do show up, why are they showing up? Because there was definitely a couple people where it was like they were polite, but like it kind of slipped out. It's sort of like, well, when are you going to be feeling better so that like we can resume working together on my project?
yeah. When can you start to
Um,
do again?
yeah, right, and yeah, with the cancer, it was one of the first times that it was kind of like catching that and thinking about that and going, instead of going on that reel of like, oh yeah, okay, well, like this is probably how I'm gonna feel, and like here, thinking about how I can make their expectation for the doing fit with my cancer,
Yeah.
and stopping and going, or what if we were honest with them about like, first of all, I mean, maybe not coming straight up and saying like, I'm not sure I want to work on the project going forward with you because like you seem to be not interested so much in my being and when I can work on your project again, but also just like this is going to realistically be 2 or 3 months, even though it's only 1 month of treatment. That this is not going to be easy, and this is not going to be something that, you know, I'm going to work myself through so that I can get your approval, or, you know, the approval of like a friend group that are potentially more customers that I want, that, you know, I could work with. And it's like, well, mm, yeah, like I would rather spend time with people who are appreciating the being, and I'd rather spend my working time, if I have the privilege, with, you know, yeah, like people that I enjoy working with. Um, Also, and kind of a something that has been bubbling up, and then in like also maybe conversation 3 or 4 that we touched on, sort of was a catalyst to speed that up. So
And
good
I'm
stuff.
yeah, because I was actually on uh, at the end of the month, last month, I sat down and I did my sort of time management so that my Jenny can do the invoices and stuff. And I thought, I wonder how much do I know at the start of October that I will be invoicing at the end of October? So I actually sat down and counted out the days and hours and different customers and clients uh, and wrote it down, thinking that, okay, I'll check this at the end of October to see what it is. But then I actually did the same for November and December. It's like it's a diminishing number, but it's better than it would have been if I'd done that exercise 2, 3 weeks ago, because I actually did call out to one of my clients last week, the beginning of last week, where I said, "Hey, I need to get some dates in my calendar so that I know how many days and when I will be coming to you. These are my, openings, pick and choose." And they reverted and said, "We'll take those days, thank you." So I have like 2 to 4 days, October and November and December, like per month, that I know I'll be working at their place as well. And that just felt so good. I could ask, and they actually gave me dates. He's like, wow, that's so cool. It's so easy. And I've never done this before. I have been my own now for 15 years. October 2007 is when I started my company. I've never looked ahead to see how much will I be invoicing this month, ever. And there is a shift in me. And the shift is also related to this doing versus being aspect, because that customer, the one that I got the 2 to 4 dates for each month, is a customer where my experience is that I'm there for the doing, but we are in relationship, and it is a being relationship. I am being there. They appreciate my being. They we have that relationship, and then the doing flows from there. Whereas other assignments, other things I'm working on, it's almost flipped. It's only the doing. We couldn't care less about your being. And then quite a lot of gigs I've had over the years have been a combination. Because there's always somebody, I'm quite good at making friends and finding interesting people. So I do that and make that relationship where, but there's always also people who are like, we couldn't care less about you. You're just a weird thing, but you do some good documents, or you review stuff. quickly
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
I've had music collaborators. Oh, we like 10% of what you're doing, but just give us 10% of that and just 90% of it just go away, please.
Yeah. And here's the thing. This is what I'm actually starting to ponder. The value of the money I make based on is it money that I'm making from a place where my being is valued, welcomed, appreciated, acknowledged, validated? Or is it money that I'm making from a place where it's just the doing? We couldn't care less about the being. And I realized the same amount of money actually has a very different value. Because if it's 1,000 crowns that I make from a place where my being is valued, that's a heck of a lot more worth than 1,000 crowns from a place whose only interest in me is in my doing. So I think that's I haven't done that work, but I will be, I'll be checking these October, November, December dates as well to see what's the ratio and how can I impact that? Because I mean, I think I'd be hard pressed to get all of my money from a being place, but it needs to be a ratio that means that I'm getting enough of that so that I can stand to be in the doing places.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I have been working on this project for myself, is because I mean, it's been probably 3 years since I did I really from start to finish did a song that was for myself, that was um just for my creative expression, which is why I started doing music in the
Yeah,
first place in high
yeah,
school. Is, you know, I have been raised with no emotional intelligence or real emotional maturity, but for whatever reason, when I put these notes together, I can express how I'm feeling. So, it's like that is where the love of doing it was, forged, is in this place where it is for me, and it's doing that like for myself, that reinforces my being.
and it sounds as if it
And
is doing that stems from your being. The being is the
well,
basis of it, the root of it.
I like to think it's kind of a feedback loop, is that, you
Yeah,
know that that they feed into one
yeah,
another, that
and they do.
make, or they
Yeah,
can, it can also, as I said, have this sort of, well, as soon as you put
and
expectations
yeah,
on it.
and again, if you look at the cross, like the vertical is the being and the horizontal is the doing. When the being and doing is done near the where they cross paths, stuff happens. But if you're way out at the end of the fingers, you're really far from your center being. It's much harder to have
Mm,
feedback loops from out there.
yeah.
But if you're closer in, okay, yeah, here there's a lot of nourishment there.
This is maybe related, but I I also like, it dawned on me that, like, with the cross image, that it could also be like two sides like this, sort of like holding each other,
Yeah.
or like pulling on one another, um and bearing more weight than
Yeah,
maybe
connecting in a way where yeah.
uh So I like the symbolic metaphor.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, and it's also just been complicated recently with did I talk about the Ari Hirschstand How to Make It in the Music Industry book that I've been reading?
No, I don't
Um,
think so.
basically, uh, he gives like a talk at the beginning, um, like in the introduction before he even launches into, here are different strategies, here are, things you actually need to do. It's sort of like this is the state of the modern music industry, and these are the hurdles that if you are going to choose to have this as your career path that you are likely to encounter. And one of them was like, you really need to be very clear on your reasons for why you want to do this and why you want to invest your time, energy, money, all of this, because it in many regards is kind of a crazy pursuit. Um, and like I think that it was something that the quote was something along the lines of like, just I like music is not by itself a very strong reason. Like, I really like Thai food, but I don't want to eat it every night for the rest of my life. Um, and talking about these other reasons, like getting clear on these other reasons, but also you do need to really like music. You really have to love music. I mean, yeah, it is in some ways like a favorite food that you have to eat every night. So it's like, do you love music? And that kind of threw me for a thing because I had been working for clients, sometimes enjoying myself more than others, but oftentimes, you know, like, I have all these ideas that I think would be really cool, but they, don't want to do. And I'm having to, you know, well, and not just from the creative aspect, but also, I want you to make something that sounds like this. Okay, I'm going to do that. Wait, no, actually like this. Wait, no, actually like that.
Mm.
Wait, no, actually like to the point where it's like, I could teach you. I could teach you how to do this because it seems like, you have a very clear idea of what you want, but it's in your head, and
Yeah,
you're
you
having
can't
trouble
communicate it out. Yeah.
communicating it. Um but it came to, yeah, like, I mean, if I look at how I've approached this for the past 3 years, I don't know if I would look at that person and say, yeah, that person loves music. Um, and it's like, well, okay, how much of it is growing up in a house where um, work is not the thing you love, it's the thing you have to do, and you come home and you complain about, um, and it's something you endure so that you can survive. Um, how much of that is being primed with that? How much of that is immaturity that, oh, but I have all these cool ideas, but, because they're paying me, I have to suppress my creativity. Um, but what I came back to, and I think that working, because I do have a collaborator who I am genuinely just collaborating with. We're working together on securing uh, places in music, like placements in music libraries, so that they can be placed on film and TV. Very fulfilling relationship because, I mean, I do think that there's some of that being appreciated for being. I mean, yes, definitely appreciation for doing too, but appreciation for being.
Yeah.
And and I think that yeah, I should shoot for that goal. I think that I,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing your philosophy on this because I think that could save me a lot of heartache because
25
there is
years.
definitely, yeah, because there's definitely an inner child that is, you know, we're very individually talented. Let's just only make stuff for us. And it's like, well, you have to live. You have to have
Yeah.
you have to take care of yourself. You have to be in reality, and you can be gentle, but it always comes back to that there is also an edge.
Yeah, and it's I mean, part of the thing, because if I can very clearly draw this doing being aspect back into my childhood, and this aspect I've just today and last night, this morning and last night, I had the sixth, I had the seventh conversation in my book circle on Women in Rome with the Wolves. And um, this chapter is called Finding One's Pack, Belonging as Blessing. And it's the ugly duckling story. And it's a fantastic chapter. All of the chapters are fantastic, but this is a fantastic chapter. And the it is a little bit like you saying your parental role models. Kind of shaky, kind of not really what you need. You know, it's like, okay, you have modeled them, but nah. You know, I'm not even internally able to parent myself in the way that I need to be parented because of my role model. So that's, I think, what working with these people where I am so appreciated for my being, that is part of what they're doing for me. They are ideal parents for me so that I can reprogram my internal parent and start to parent me better so that that part of me, is appreciating the other part of me for my being. Not just for the fucking utilitarian, functionalistic, practical, efficient, productive shit that the doing part is so good at, but that I'm allowed to just appreciate me for me. I'm allowed to just revel in that. Um, and to find that combination, because I don't, it's like, again, no one good thing is a good thing if it's the only thing you have. So I'm not saying I will be blissed out and my inner parent will just be, petting my inner little child on the head saying, I so appreciate you being. It's like, no. But now and again, yes. And I haven't. I've never done that with myself. But I'm learning. So it's really been an interesting journey this year. I would say it's October now. So the 9 months of this year have really been helping me find my inner child, find my inner parent and my inner parents, and looking at what are my actual parents, what did they give me, what didn't they give me, and what would my ideal parents have been giving me. What is it that I need from ideal parents, and how can I learn from that? And that's what this gig is doing for me. That, I've been there for 8 years now. Uh, and this last year, I've realized how important they are for me. For me. And I actually told one of them last week. I had a Zoom call with him and I said that I so appreciate working with you. And it goes way beyond just the professional aspect because, you matter to me. You are important. What we do together is important for me because we're people. And he said the same thing. He said, "Yeah, we've gotten to be really, really close, and it just works." And the work worked so much better and with more flow when it comes from that being. It just, you know? Whereas if it's not being or centered and it's doing, it's much choppier seas somehow. It is a much rougher ride. Um, it's like, yeah, you can get it done, but man, it's a slog. It's much more of a slog.
In a conversation I had with my sister, we kind of came up with the idea. We came up with the idea of like the doing fuel source. What is the fuel that is powering the doing? Like, is it a dirty fuel source? Like the coal would be like anxiety and fear,
Yeah.
fear of not belonging, fear of failure. Like if I
Yeah.
try this, I already know what the result is going to be, and so I'm trying really hard at this thing that I don't actually like, but I know it's going to be safer for me. Um, you know, is like is the reason behind what you're doing actually good for you? Um, and a clean source is more like excitement because
Yeah.
like I really like doing this, or I like the like I mean it could ideally you love the process too, but I really like the results that I get, and I love the final vision, and I love it when it's done. And so, you know, but something that pulls you instead of like pushing you.
Pushes. Yeah.
No, please, I don't want, you
Yeah.
know, instead of being, you know, yeah, valued for, yeah, like because you feel valued for who you are. Sounds like a very clean source. We can
Yeah.
definitely add that to the clean sources, but um, yeah, fear of well, and fear of disapproval is still fear of like ostracization or not fitting in, but um, yeah, and
I would add
yeah,
th- the dirty part of it. One of the dirty energy sources could be a wanting to fit in. Whereas on the clean side, you have the other one, which is, I know I belong, which is a fucking big difference. Because when you're doing to fit in, it is not the being. But when you're being is the source for your doing because you know that you belong. Oh man, because that's the feeling with the dress versus sun. It's like I belong. It's just, and from there, whoa, the bubbles that comes from that.
I made a connection. I think while we were talking, like, okay, this is I guess a subject that has been coming up recently, and maybe I'll call it an egregore or collective unconscious, but like, I mean, well, it kind of came up in our conversation about like culture versus civilization, and I don't know if this is maybe an outgrowth or a connection to that, but like when you're coming together with a person or more people and you're forming a group of some sort, you're kind of creating an entity that is like, I mean, you're part of it, but you're not part of it. You're an individual, but you're part of this thing that exists because it's a thing being, that's comprised of multiple people. And yeah, those two mindset shifts, it's kind of like, Yeah, like, are you serving the organism? Is the organism just serving you, or is it like a symbiotic relationship?
Mm,
Mm,
mm.
because if it's, I mean, I think I can definitely think of like middle and high school as generally being times in people's lives where, you know, well, for me, I think in college too, uh, but like, oh, this group exists because there's some prior history and we don't really want to be alone.
Yeah.
And well, we're doing these activities together to do activities together. Um, you know, like everyone, you know, talking about each other behind their backs, and there are weird alliances and stuff where it's like, oh, so this is, yeah, is this a group that is together out of fear, or is
Yeah,
this a group
it's
that's
like
together out of
parasitic
love?
or symbiotic. Um,
Yeah.
where I think in episode 3 with Mandel, when we spoke about his group of what, 10 plus maybe even, um, men that he's been hanging around with since forever. And they seem so close. And it's fantastic to hear him talk about it. And, I'm friends with him on Instagram and I see all of these, there's weddings and there's baby showers and there's trips and there's just hanging out and having dinner because it's somebody's birthday. And it's just fantastic to see. That is such a symbiotic group, a symbiotic relationship, a pack, very distinct pack where belonging just is. It's not a matter of anybody fitting in, oh, I have to wear these types of shoes or do this or that in order to fit it. No, 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 no. Come as you are, you belong. Whereas I've been a part of groups that are much more the parasitic type where it takes energy from me because I never really know. Am I allowed to look like this? Am I wearing the right shoes or jeans or jacket? Or can I say what I actually think and feel and experience? Or, no, they will not like me. They will shut me out. They will whatever. So I'm trying to fit in. And it's such a difference. It's such a felt, the difference in feeling is so huge. And it is the ugly duckling. It's like that's what that thing is. Find your pack and you will find it. There are people who will value it. It's like I found them at a contract packager company. It's like, who would have known? Right? I found them in my three wives. It's like, yes, we definitely have that pack going. And I have other, so I have a few of those where I so feel that. And some of them have been almost instant, and others have just been, just have been slowly working up to it. Um, with my wives, it's like, yeah, we were just there. We just worked. We just skipped all of those steps in Firo and just went straight to the last one. Just okay, everything's set. We're done. We're good. We can just work. And we're different and we challenge. There's a fuckload of edge. You would not believe the messenger thread we have had going for many years by now. The conversations we can have are just fantastic because they are from that trust that belonging gives you. I can say, I can do, I can be. They will not shut me out, shut me down, you know, keep me quiet. It's like nothing. They'll say, okay, she's a little bit crazy, but we love you anyway. Or what the fuck? How on earth did you come to that conclusion? You have to tell me because I don't get it. Right. So you can have all of that, but I know I belong. It's just complete trust.
Well, in that question of how did you come to that conclusion? Explain it to me. I really like that because that person said that instead of kind of just uncomfortably going, okay, you know, it was, I want to understand you.
Yeah.
I want to understand this point
Yeah.
of view. Maybe I'm not
Yeah.
going to agree with it, maybe, but but if I understand it, like, I better understand you.
And it's interesting to hear you say that because I think that's one of the reasons why we know each other so well. It's like I think we all carry the others around with us, more or less, but I come at situations and I know, okay, so someone would be doing this here. Okay, I can do a little bit of her. It's like or one of us has an issue or something and we start to write about it and it's like okay I know why she's having an issue with this because and then the way that the four of us just come then with different perspective and different angles and I always ask you know the others are in school and I'm not so they can be all researchy and sciency and and then I come from a totally different or on it's just fantastic at flipping every fucking thing upside down and you just go what the fuck how um so it's so valuable to have that and the way that all of us have just risen and expanded as people because we are in this absolutely safe place where it is safe to not be safe. It is safe to not know. It is safe to say, I have no fucking idea how this works. Could somebody please help me? Because I feel dumb. So it's safe to be dumb, right? So it's the safest place where you can be on that edge and they won't hit you hard. They won't hammer you down so
They
that you
won't knock
split
you
in
off.
two, right?
Yeah, or,
Precisely.
or flick you off the edge.
Yeah, they
They'll
won't do
hold
that,
your
but they'll
hand.
go, okay, come on, let's do this. We can do this, right? What will keep you on that edge for a little while longer? How can we challenge you just for a little while so that it's like, it's a fantastic, it's a fantastic experience to have. I'm
Sounds
so
like
fucking lucky.
challenging empathy and curiosity.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And again, we have there's so much value in having your pack, having that group.
Well, and to what you said earlier about they you can look around, I mean, you have your own models in your head of like how parents should be, how, I mean, an outgrowth of that, how like you think the world should be or how you see the world. Um, and then you see other people who can behave differently. And so then they can sort of become pseudo parents. Um, it is funny because in getting better at watching child self and parent self and in those interactions, um, I can catch myself like copying not just my parents, but my sister, who's like
Mm,
4 years younger than me. So, you know, I don't know if it's because, she was also raised in the same environment, so there are the same parental figures, but um, yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, I think that ideally you can learn from anyone. And I mean, like I was babysitting a 10-year-old kid for a while, and I mean, he taught me things,
Yeah.
not, I mean, directly, but also just remember or like memories of when I was that age and kind of waking up that child self and remembering, oh, right, this is how I felt about all of these things. Um, and then, 10-year-old self viewing the world through, uh, you know, well, 25-year-old self viewing like through their 10-year-old self, another 10-year-old's experience of the world today, and seeing things that are different and learning and going like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, it's a question of open and close. You know, am
yeah.
I
Well,
open to
I
it?
had to be closed at some points, because like he is able to, because it was a very safe environment for him compared to his home environment.
Mm.
He would start kind of letting himself out a bit, and he could emulate parental behaviors, and then since I'm, would be flipping back and forth between 25 and 10, you know, checking himself, going, okay, right here, he's 10, you're in charge. Like,
Yeah.
you do have to set a limit here. We have to, like we can we can point and shout at all of these, like, exciting pulling behaviors to try to get him to move in the right direction of his own will and accord and through excitement. But yeah, sometimes, like, go, no, sorry, you are not allowed to have chocolate whenever you want. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I, you are given allotments of time for certain things, and allotments for like amounts of certain things. So, but uh, yeah, I but the trust. Oh,
We
hello,
have Pop
Pop.
the cat coming.
She needed to just wave his tail
Wave
around a
that
bit.
little tail around a bit. Yeah, he's
Um,
upset at me because I have 3 kibble brands, and today I gave him the one that he likes the least. So he's kind of
oh,
hovering, hoping that maybe I'll pour a little bit
change your
of one of the
mind.
other ones on top so that at least he can have some better kibble. Uh, but he can't wait.
He's fun. Um, but yeah, high trust environments are,
Yeah.
I think, are good. Mm.
Yeah, and that's okay. So this makes me wonder, is there such a thing as too much trust? Or is that one of the exceptions to the rule?
No, I don't know about that. I think you're onto something about that. I mean, there's a reason why, um, certain, like, televangelists take a whole bunch of money from poor folks, and politicians just since the beginning of society. Um, yeah, I think that
Mm,
high trust, but yeah, it's
yeah, because that's
but is
manipulative.
everything's kind of a
Yeah,
balance though,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's kind of
true.
yin
But
yang
in a
kind of.
setting like my my with my wives. It's like, is there too much trust there? Is it possible to? Because trust for me, it does not negate or take away the fact that I have responsibility. I need to use discernment. I am my own person, so that, it's like, it doesn't say you can just lay flat and they'll do everything. It's like, no. But that sense of, I have complete and utter faith in you. I totally trust you and your abilities and your responsibilities and your discernments. And, it's like, mm,
Well, when I described it, I think I said it was challenging empathy and curiosity.
yeah, yeah. Because it is. Because that's the edge part.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also maybe, and I have to be careful with this because I do tend to often set my mind to something and not necessarily switch it when the situation changes and a different perspective or mindset is fitting. But I think that in coming back to the anxiety versus like anxiety motivator, negative fuel source versus the like excited pulling, that it can't just be one person, but I think in groups of people, you know, taking taking a personal, well, you can take responsibility for creating a culture like that by acting in certain ways. And like when somebody does something that's not okay, like having a conversation about it instead of letting resentment build, and then passive aggressive, silly group dynamics where
Yeah.
people start pulling other people into it because they want to
Yeah.
convince themselves that they're right.
And then you go all
Um,
drama and stuff.
yeah, yeah, but the drama triangle is a source of
Mm.
a lot of games. So
But so I will find one of the parts of this book that I have been reading in both of the sessions that I had. We're talking about Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. It's chapter 6, Finding One's Pack, Belonging as Blessing. And it's the little sub chapter called Love for the Soul on page 204 and 205 when you have this pocketbook that a lot of people have. And it's about the beauty of her soul shines through when she's being herself, and herself is then this wild woman. So this is what it says. So that is the final work of the exile who finds her own, to not only accept one's individuality, one's specific identity as a certain kind of person, but also to accept one's beauty, the shape of one's soul, and the fact that living close to that wild creature transforms us and all that it touches. When we accept our own wild beauty, it is put into perspective, and we are no longer poignantly aware of it anymore, but neither would we forsake it or disclaim it either. Does a wolf know how beautiful she is when she leaps? Does a feline know what beautiful shapes she makes when she sits? Is a bird awed by the sound it hears when it snaps open its wings? Learning from them, we just act in our own true way and do not draw back from or hide our natural beauty. like the creatures, we just are, and it is right. And I just love that passage. Um, which is, for me, another, that is belonging. That is that I don't have any doubt or questions about my worth, about do I fit in if I do this, or it's like, no, here I am. This is what creatures like me do. This is what creatures like Pup do, um, when you're just there.
A question that comes up for me is part of the confidence in showing up that way and in being that way, being okay with being with oneself, and that if one did not belong, that one could still take happiness from like the fact that they are. I mean, I know that in the poem it says, "Do these creatures think about it?" But I also don't think that, I mean, sure, probably, they do look for, socialization and such, but do they dislike themselves if they're on their own? I think, and I well, with some creatures that are highly social, I mean, I genuinely wonder, because I know a lot of humans can feel not belonging as pain, but like I feel like as I have gotten, I'm definitely not embodying that quote, but I'm trying to get there. But I feel I personally, when I am acting more that way, it's because I recognize like that I do like myself and I like being with myself, with just myself. And if there wasn't other people to hang out with, or if I did face, you know, uh,
Pup is just scratching himself.
I'm I'm loving it. I lost my cat last year, I think,
Mm.
year and a half ago, and so I just I like watching cats and going
Yeah.
out. Like, have you been to a cat cafe before?
I've never been to a cat cafe, no. There was one in town, but I don't know if it's still open.
I just wish it wasn't so expensive, at least the one where I live, because cats take a while to like warm up to people usually, and especially at a place where, people are constantly coming in and out, and an hour is like $17. It's like, ooh, if I
Mm.
want to be here for three
For too
hours,
long.
that's
Mm.
kind of a lot. Like,
Mm.
not that I don't, I don't know. It's making me think that I may need to adopt a cat because
Yeah.
at a certain point it makes more financial sense.
Yeah. And
But
they are lovely. And he is a good reminder for me about this thing of being, of being. And he's just being a cat, and he doesn't think about it. He doesn't have qualms about it. He just is. Now and again, annoyingly so. Um, but more of the time, I'm reminded of self-care. I'm reminded of the importance of sleep and a cuddle and a stretch. And it's like he's a good he's a good teacher to have around. in that way. And I think our cognition, human cognition, makes us, or let's put it this way, human cognition in the culture that we're living in, where we so do question our doubt or question and doubt our self-worth, and am I effective enough? Am I productive enough? Am I providing enough value? Am I doing the thing that I'm supposed
Do
to
I
be
have enough
doing?
followers?
Precisely, right? Did I, do I have a nice enough profile pic or bio? Or, yeah, it's like just rubbish shit stuff. Um, but what I'm getting to be more, to pull it back to this aspect of what's the situations where my being just is where I just belong, and the other ones where, no, please don't be over here, but you can do. It's just that I'm noticing that my wild me, my Helenaisms, the pure essence of me is much closer to the surface in the being circles or circumstances where I don't have to guard myself. I don't have the fear of fitting in or not fitting in, etc., because I'm welcome. Um, and it's not a good or a bad thing. And belonging can occur in those doing places as well, because now and again there's somebody and you connect and there's that spark. Now and again there's a moment where it happens. It itches on his ears, he says. Um so it's again, probably it's again that thing where my sense of having packs, because I do have a couple, um, is a very grounding, uh, it's like an anchor that is there. Um, and it makes it easier when it's storming outside.
And
Um,
the waters are trying to push you to and fro, and
yeah, yeah. And that's how me and my wives have been, you know, using each other, because it's like when shit has hit the fan, you can go to that place and just, you know, puke out whatever, you want to puke out, or just break down and cry, or, just say, it's hell right now, but I don't want to talk about it. I just want you to know. Like, okay, so to have that. Um, and this is another thing where I also think I don't have, my mom is not a part of any pack. I'm not sure about my dad. I don't really think so. So I
my
don't,
dad, no.
again, when it comes to that, what's the role models? What have I seen growing up about how do you find your pack? Like, no, not really have I seen that. Um,
You know, and likewise, dad. Well, to some degree, dad. So dad doesn't really have a pack, uh, and my mom has like she has rekindled some individual friendships, but it's usually like a work-wise kind of situation. But it's yeah, I mean, they kind of it seems like they enjoy each other's company like while they're working, but it's primarily to get things done and to keep her on her edge professionally, which I can definitely respect, but um, you copy that and then it's like, oh, well, I only have, that doesn't necessarily net you a lot of close friends when
Yeah.
it's always business.
Yeah. I kind of have, I kind of do the other way around. I turn people into friends. I turn work people into friends. I I pull them
Friendship
in.
alchemist.
Yeah. And again, it's like the online world works really well for me that way. And I can feel really close to people that I've never physically met. And my wife's, it started like that. It started on Twitter. Um, so it's like I know that the potential for that is just, there's no limit to that, to the connection that is possible. Um, but at the same time, like I've been saying for the past year in these episodes, it's like the challenge for me is to make sure that I also get the physical closeness in person. Um, so it's not all online. It needs to be balanced there too. Needs to be balanced there too.
You can sum up a lot of this episode in just saying balance is hard.
Yeah.
It's, but
Or it's fun,
uh,
because it's
it
fun
can be
too,
fun.
right?
Well, yeah, it can, well, it should be a fun challenge.
Yeah.
It should be
Yeah.
a fun challenge. It should not feel like you're gonna slip off the ball. But
And I mean,
but
again, you
that's
have to
but
start,
that's our fuel source.
yes, and start at a reasonable level again. It's like I've I've tried slacklining, just in when there's a fairground or stuff, and you step up on one of those freaking horrible bands, like lines between, and somebody is up there who knows how to do it, and they're like, ooh, they're just, moving, and you take one, you put one foot on it, and I hold on to somebody else, and then I kind of raise up, and my foot just goes all over the fucking place, and you go, how can somebody be walking on this thing? It doesn't stand still. It just moves. It's like crazy. But I'm just, 2 feet above ground, so I won't hurt myself. If it was, along high up, that would
You're
be
not
too
doing the
hard.
walk between the two towers
In New York, precisely.
in New
It's like,
York. It was that
not
a
that.
famous thing
Don't
that
start there. So in
no.
this dance of balance, find the little challenge. Find the little thing where it's safe to play with, where it's safe to, you know, tone something up and tone something down. What would happen if?
I something that because Tankespeon means to brace against, yeah.
Yeah.
I've really liked the Sisyphus
Mhm.
myth, like the Greek myth of how he is doomed to push the boulder up the hill. Well, being on these learning curves, is kind of like you're trying to push up the hill. And when you finish one, there's always another hill.
Yep.
And and then recursion back to previous conversations about like choosing when to tune into the signal, choosing which shell to push, not
Yeah.
now. Um,
Precise. Do I need to rest now? Yeah, it's like, okay, I need a night's sleep first. It's like no more boulders for me today. Okay. Um, but it's the part of my therapizing. Now and again, I fall into these utter pits of despair where I'm just crying like crazy because I feel it's so much Sisyphus and it's just a slog. It's like there's no not slogging. There's no reprieve. I have to constantly, 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 constantly be pushing that boulder up the hill and then it falls down and I have to and down and down. But it is temporary, like everything, you know? And I can allow myself to feel that utter despair. And I've set up a surrounding, a setting for it where I am in safe, trusting company so that I am not alone. I'm not, you know, I'm held. Uh,
or you have someone pushing with you.
yeah. I'm not alone in that. Um, and it's just that makes a big difference. For me, that makes a big difference. And at the same time, I so love being alone. It's like, mm, that has really been one of the hugest insights since my divorce. That, man, I love being alone. Almost too much. Almost too much. But I really like it. So I am very comfortable with me, except when I'm at a hotel room and being a lethargic blob, because then I'm just disgusted by myself, which is like, it's so interesting. Why wasn't I just enjoying it? It's like, no, that was not who I was last week.
I mean, this could be a whole thing, but is it the spaces?
What do you mean?
L- Like, I mean, you decorated your house, right? And you presumably chose the house for specific purposes, but like the space the space is suited to you and it's familiar and hopefully it supports you being who
Yeah,
you want to be.
yeah,
And in a hotel room, it's for anyone, but also kind of no one.
yeah, for no one, I would say. Yeah,
Like you're really, if I think about it, really alone in that situation, or like with yourself and not with other extensions or associations.
he wants to drink from my cup of water. Can't. It's mine.
he's he's still trying to me he's still asking for
Kibble.
the treat.
Give me my food, the one I like, not the ugly or yucky one. It's like, no, sorry, dude. You're not getting more until you finish it. But yeah. Well, Luke, do you know that this is our 5th conversation?
It is.
Isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah. I think we may need to have more conversations that are not part of the podcast.
Yeah. I feel pretty certain that we will. And I feel that with everybody. But I've actually that's one of the things that I've been pondering. It's like, will I wonder if I'll take a little break. I can't see myself not continuing to do this, but I've been doing it for 3 seasons with nonstop, not missing a week. Is it maybe time for a little break? And then possibly recording, me reading a few blog posts or something so that there's something coming up every week. The way that the first almost 100 episodes of the podcast is like that. Um, so I might do that and then maybe start again in January and release season 4 in January. I don't know. I've been thinking about it. Because again, that's cyclical aspect of it. It actually makes sense that maybe it is time for a little pause.
Are the blog posts often inspired by conversations?
Yeah, well, yes, and I haven't been blogging much in the last 2 years. But I could probably write 1,000 blog posts based on these 75 conversations I've had so far. Easily. Easily. Because there's so much that I could just, so.
I mean, I think I brought it up in one of the conversations that I started recognizing, like, oh, it takes me, like, I can learn about something, or I can hear about something, or I can even think I understand something, and then it's like I don't feel like I've really processed it, and all of the insights have bubbled up, and I've actually like embodied them for like, I mean, 6 months would be quick, but
Mm.
like 2 years. Um,
Yeah.
so um, that wouldn't surprise me if you went through a period where you had a lot of insights and like that needed to come out.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe. Maybe. But it has been an absolute treat to have you here. And I'm especially
Likewise,
honored that you did go on because you're having this little cancer moment. Um, and still doing this, or maybe that's why you're doing this. But it's been lovely to hang with you.
it's been very lovely to hang with you too, and I really appreciate uh, these conversations and the company during the little bit of cancer, because it was definitely a period of time where the the seeds of change were ready to blossom, where or like the ground was fertile, or the point being that it was a very impactful experience. And so I recognize that a lot of what came up in the conversations are going to be very important things. And I'm glad that they came up during this time, because um, there are a lot of really important things to work on
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
try to embody um, for
And
me.
that's actually one of
Yeah.
the things that I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about my writing and how I basically not have written any of the therapy sessions for the past year. But I've been recording conversations. So there's a lot of these conversations where I bring up what has happened in the most recent therapy session. So even though I actually haven't written it down, there's at least a partial record of it, especially me and Steve. And we recorded a couple of episodes November, December, January, maybe in February, so, and we were just talking about this basically. So I have, there's been a partial processing because this is a way for me to process as well, to speak it, to hear myself speak it, to be in interaction with somebody else who can, nod or go, I don't get what you're talking about, or could you explain that? Or yeah, this and that. And so it's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think that I have noticed that talking about the same thing or telling the same story with different people feels very different and will bring up different things for me than I'll make connections that I never otherwise would
Yeah.
have because of who I'm talking about things
Yeah.
with. Um,
Yeah.
even and maybe, yeah, maybe some part of like seeing the way that you are perceived by somebody else, and then you know going through like, oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Dots
or or
connect in the most mysterious ways.
or this is how this person views or would view this situation or this thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
even get to ask about the runes, but maybe that's for another conversation.
oh yeah, my roots. I've got here. It's been it's been such a little treat to make them. But I've yet to make them a leather pouch, but I I have some leather from in the basement. I did a lot of leather bracelets and stuff. And my well, years ago. So, but I still have leather, so I'll do that. But yeah, maybe another time. Yeah. But we will also see each other for the group combo, and I don't remember which group combo. If are you in
Mandel and
the?
Kate.
So that's the 20 something, not next
Yes,
weekend.
it's on my calendar.
It's on your calendar. I think that's the second one. Oh, I so look forward to that.
I am gonna do my best to listen to some of Mandel and Kate's episodes so
Yeah.
that we can have talk about different ideas and
Yeah.
weave some things together.
I would really, really highly strongly recommend number 75, Dance Like Nobody's Watching with me and Kate. It is a keeper for sure. And me and Mendel 76 is How is Your Heart
I've got to write
Today?
these down here. 75 and 76.
Yeah. How is your heart today? Such a good question to ask. And Mandel is looking at buying tickets to come here in the spring. That's so fun.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. Well, thank you for today, and thank you for
Likewise.
all of the todays. Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah. Well, see you around, my friend.
See you around.
Luke is really good at keeping the concept of doing gentle with an edge alive during our conversations. And doing gentle with an edge is first, it was a blog series. Then I read those blog series so that it is the beginning, the start of this podcast. The first 100 episodes are doing gentle with an edge blog posts and reflection posts that I wrote or published during the same time, which is 2016. And then I turned it into an ebook and an audiobook where basically it is the blog posts, but there's a little bit of a twist. There's questions or prompts at the end of each chapter, and they're basically one-page chapters to just make sure that there's some tankespan there, so that there's an easier way for you as a reader or listener to incorporate or play with or experiment with what each chapter is pointing to. And I realize talking to look like this how important that concept is for me and has been for me. And it is a huge part of why I so love doing these meandering conversations that basically have there's no set structure, there's no agenda to meet or no point to get to. We can just meander, which provides both the gentleness and the edge, because you just never know where you'll end up. I love it. I hope you do too. And if you haven't already, please check out Doing Gentle with an Edge. You can find it at tankesbjörn.com.